Good morning, Internet. How are you today? I hope you're good. I want to talk about what happens when a narcissistic person meets up with, um, I guess you can say, I don't really believe in dark empaths, but people still think that. I would just say an aware empath, right? And what goes on? So you have to understand, in my opinion, that narcissistic people are not binary. It's not like, hey, you're healthy and hey, you're a narcissist, right? There's a scale, obviously, cluster B, all this other stuff. Um, so you might get some people who are, I would definitely say, broken empaths, people who do have some common sense, people who do have some empathy, but they have some narcissistic traits. Um, or full blown narcissists or whatever. Like you will get a little bit of column A and column B, especially if a person was raised by a narcissist, but still had people in their formative years who were supportive and gave them more of the empathy kind of thing. And so their self defense mechanisms are narcissistic, right? Now, let's go over this again because we keep forgetting that narcissistic people are not this walking, talking boogeyman, right? They are people who have very selfish, self centered defense mechanisms to the point that their insecurities and their lives are going to be more important than you. And they don't mind taking that moral risk of basically doing what they want. Now, I know I have definitely talked about these people as monsters when I was basically in my healing stage. Now that I'm older and I've done my, I guess you could say, shadow work, um, I see these people basically as very selfish, self centered children. Now, with that being the case, let's talk about what happens when a self aware empath, codependent, has done their healing, definitely stronger. You have to understand that narcissistic people, even if they do talk about their illness, their disorders, or whatever, they're still never really going to heal, right? Those defense mechanisms are going to kick in like Bruce Lee. Um, and stop the healing process because they don't like to be wrong. They don't like to be abandoned. And they kind of want to make you the center of their world because they have mommy and daddy issues, right? Like these are people who have supreme mommy and daddy issues. And what they don't want to tell you, in my opinion, from all the narcissists that I have dealt with, family, lovers, friends, is that they need a mommy and daddy. And that's why they do what they do in the initial stages of your dating, the love bombing, the enmeshing, or whatever, right? So, what happens if you decide to date one or you become friends with one? Well, um, it's an intriguing incident. It's very intriguing, especially if you're healthy and they don't know what they are. They don't know who they are, right? Um, I'll talk about the red flags later. I did talk about it before, but now that I have come to the other side of health and mental clarity, I will talk about it again because not all narcissistic people have all of the red flags. But if you kind of have like a majority of the red flags I'll talk about, then you know you're dealing with a narcissistic person and you have to treat them differently. Now, yes, you can avoid them. Like, I would totally suggest that you avoid anyone who's extraordinarily narcissistic. Duh. But you will probably deal with a lot of people who have narcissistic traits, right? Because not everyone came from a healthy family. And even I have narcissistic traits, which I will readily agree and admit to because, I just don't give a fuck at times. And I have to protect myself. It's okay to have narcissistic traits. It's when those traits take over. But let's just talk about it. Let's talk about what happens when a unaware narcissistic person with some narcissistic traits, but not enough to be basically a, a beast on legs, meets up with a person who's healthy, right? Now, healthy people have one thing going for them that narcissistic people do not. Healthy people have boundaries and they stick to them. Narcissistic people do not have boundaries. They are actually trying to find a way to break down your boundaries. Healthy people, which I guess you can say dark empaths, whatever, but I just say healthy people who understand who they are, they have boundaries and they don't move from them. I only say this is because there are some people in my life now that do have some heavy narcissistic traits. And they think I don't see them, right? But I do. And I just play the game because I benefit. Now, I know that sounds horrible, but I do benefit. So they get what they want, and I get what I want, and I keep it moving, right? Narcissistic people, still, they crave attention, right? It's that very vacant hole from mommy and daddy, right? That they cannot fill themselves because they don't want to do that kind of work. They think they don't have a problem. So they kind of replace it with other things. It could be shopping, it could be gambling, it could be food, it could be thrills, it could be something dangerous, it could be whatever. But because they don't have this paternal or maternal structure within themselves from them growing up, could be rich, could be poor, could be in between, they try to fill it. And then they meet someone who is healthy. And healthy is definitely dependent on the narcissist, how bad they are on the scale. But those who have like heavy narcissistic traits, but they still know they have some empathy in them, they know that they're kind of fucked up somehow, but they just don't know how. They look for people who have the traits that they have craved when they were kids. And so the dance starts. And, you know, people with narcissistic traits, heavy ones, not light ones, the dating process kind of goes a little bit heavier than usual. It's not complete and utter love bombing because, you know, you can tell when someone's love bombing you. It's almost kind of sickly if you are aware. But it's not going to be the normal, like, hey, how you doing? Let me give you some texts every morning or whatever. It's going to be like in between, right? It's going to be intense. It's going to be wonderful, but it will not last a long time. It won't just kind of abruptly shut off if a narcissistic person was love bombing you, but it won't kind of linger on if someone is healthy, is like, you know, texting you or breakfast or brunch or whatever. It's going to kind of be that in between where they see that they kind of won you over, and then they're going to slowly, basically ramp it down because you've been won. I would recommend two people on YouTube that you should listen to. I would highly recommend them because they do say the same things from two different gender perspectives. If you're non-binary, I apologize. I've not found a non-binary person who talks about these things, so I apologize. But if you are female dating, I would recommend the French relation coach, Alex Comment. He's actually very good because he does very simplistic advice, but he does kind of deal with how to wrangle narcissistic men. He doesn't say that, but if you are dating, you should definitely listen to him because he basically kind of gives you advice about how to deal with narcissistic men. And if you are male and you want to know the female perspective, I would definitely recommend Cluster B Milkshake. I'll have links below. She is definitely an older female narcissist. She's been there, done that. She still is. but she does give you some very good insight about how female narcissists think, act, react. And it's very true. I had to hate to say it, even though I can tell that she's from a good place. She reminds me a hell of a lot like my mother, and like when I watch her, I don't get triggered, but I'm just like, oh yeah, that was mom to a T. So you might want to have those two recommendations. Here's how I would say this: when you are dealing with a narcissistic person with some narcissistic traits, um, the best thing you can do is basically still maintain your life, because they will test you. They will test your boundaries. They will test to see what you will deal with. They will test and see when you will walk. And I've had this happen in the last couple of weeks, about what is okay, what is not okay, what is disrespectful and what is not disrespectful. And the easiest thing you can do to a narcissistic person or someone with heavy narcissistic traits: not argue with them. Have a calm conversation, only have it once, and then walk. That's basically flexing your boundaries. And when you flex your boundaries in that way, they can be trained. Now, I know that sounds horrible to say, but you cannot truly, if you decide to be in a relationship with a narcissist, be a friendship or lover or family, you cannot ever change them, but you can train them. Because deep down inside, if they chose you, not if you chose them, but if they chased after you, pursued you, whatever, this is something that you have that they desperately need. And if you know that, then you can train them. You can basically, like, bad boy, bad girl, no biscuit. And you remove yourself from the situation. And then you give them some time to kind of sit in their own pressure chamber, because narcissistic people do not like being entirely alone. Now, I don't know about psychopaths or like on the major scale, but people who have some heavy traits, but they still need that companionship, they still need this, they can't be by themselves for too long. They need to have that juice. And if you have it, then, you basically like, well, you did this, and, I am going to not be around you for a while. This will drive them crazy. Basically, when you go no contact and you just tell them straight up what they did, they will do their best to go ahead and basically try to correct the behavior, because they don't want you leaving them. They don't want you abandoning them. Those abandonment issues are deep, deep, deep. So that's just my advice. It's not like this crazy, like 12-step program. It's just that now that I'm healthy, now that I definitely have identified my codependency issues and I have fixed them through, God knows how many years, you can see the manipulation around it is actually kind of lame. It's actually very, very lame manipulation. And it's very weak. The game is very weak. You can understand narcissistic people, they don't really go for the smart people who have healthy boundaries. They go for the people who are smart and have weak boundaries and are not emotionally intelligent. My long story short is, when you have high emotional intelligence after a narcissist, you can see their game a mile away, because they try to change up the book, their rule book, but they're very sloppy with their execution. So I hope that helps. Have a wonderful day, Internet, and I will talk to you later.